What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the new comedy Friendship from A24, written and directed by Andrew DeYoung and starring Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd, and Kate Mara. And this has been one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I've been banging the drum, drinking the Kool-Aid, whatever metaphor you want to use, sharing the clips online, all that crap. And I must have watched the trailer 10 or 15 times and laughed uproariously each time. I thought this was going to be like one of those definitive dark comedies that would define the era. But I didn't laugh nearly as often nor as aggressively as I was hoping to going into it. And it wounds me to say this because I would love for this movie to make $100 million, and I would love to see A24 crank out 5 to 10 comedies every year to kind of balance out their interest in the horror genre. I feel like, for whatever reason, horror is in a great place right now, and comedy is just fucking dead. If you go to a comedy club, you will laugh your ass off. And New York is littered with comedy clubs, and you go in there, and you can tell people are just, they're dying to have an excuse to just involuntarily explode with laughter, almost like projectile vomit, where like you can't even contain it, even if you wanted to. So I went into Friendship with the most open mind possible, and just like, all right, bring it on. I'm in the mood to laugh. And I kind of giggled and tittered and chuckled and would occasionally have like a little raspy wheeze, but I very seldom found myself kind of going blah, and like cracking up. But comedy is such a wonderful, strange genre where when you're in the theater watching a great comedy and the audience is just losing their minds all around you, it can be incredibly contagious, even if you're not liking the movie. But like, I can remember going to see Borat in the theater and I thought the roof was going to blow off. Or the first Hangover movie, and I thought, the walls were rumbling. Basically, any comedy from like the 90s or early 2000s where we still had big, giant, blockbuster comedies. I can remember going to see American Pie the summer of 1999 with the whole family, including little kids, and packed house, and people were just, like I said, projectile vomiting with their laughter all over the place, and you just get kind of caught up in the storm. Whereas if you're watching a comedy at home by yourself, it's like it's all on you. I don't know if I would have laughed as much or perhaps more if I'd seen Friendship on my own at home, because my audience seemed to be into it. There were a handful of people that perhaps were more into it, but it didn't seem like anybody was like at risk of falling out of their chair or rolling down the aisles or anything like that. But once again, like, I hope this movie does well, even if I'm not going to recommend that anybody that I have a lot of friends and family members that love comedy. I'm not going to recommend to any of them that they see Friendship, because when you're recommending a comedy, you're kind of putting your reputation on the line. Like, this is funny as fucking shit. Like when you recommend Christopher Guest Waiting for Guffman to somebody, you know they're going to laugh. Or when you recommend the Coen Brothers Big Lebowski to somebody, you know they're going to laugh. Or a comedy like Scary Movie by Keenan Ivory Wayans, you know they're going to laugh their ass off. With Friendship, there might be some people who just be totally stone-faced throughout, and there might be some other people where they feel like the comedy is right on their wavelength. I feel like there'll be a small circle of people that feels like the comedy was made just for them, but I think it's going to have niche appeal.
Well, actually, it might meant.
Oh, shit! Oh, shit! Help! Help me! Help me! Oh, my God, help!
I got you.
Oh, Jesus!
But then again, I know very little about Tim Robinson's work in TV, where apparently he's got legions of fans. Perhaps there's like this giant like cult fan base for Tim Robinson that I'm totally unaware of, where they're gonna be like, dude, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Friendship is funny as fucking shit. And if that's the case, awesome. Tell all your friends that love Tim Robinson to go see Friendship. I liked him quite a bit in this. I feel like if there's a flaw, it's with the script and the direction by Andrew DeYoung. It's shot in a really interesting way, but the screenplay doesn't completely have the courage of its convictions, where every time the story gets right up to the edge of the cliff and threatens to go into truly bleak, dark comedy territory, it kind of chickens out and blinks and retreats from the edge just a little bit. It has so many great scenes where like, all right, here we go. It's about to get super fucking weird. And then it'll just kind of dissolve and like lose all of its structure and lose all of its forward momentum. But let's talk a little bit about what the actual story is itself, so people know what the hell I'm talking about. So the description over on IMDb is pretty brief, where it just says, a suburban dad falls hard for his charismatic new neighbor. And I guess that more or less gets it done, but you basically have kind of a one-sided bromance where Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd initially are getting along, and they're, hanging out and having a few beers and shooting the shit and having little adventures and that sort of thing. And as you see in the trailer, at a certain point, Paul Rudd's like, you know what? I don't think we're going to be very close friends moving forward. Let's just have a parting of the ways.
Look, we had a couple of really nice hangs, but I think it best that we go our separate ways.
movies. And Tim Robinson just can't handle that. He doesn't like being broken up with by his new bud, a bud which he didn't even know that he needed in his life until his wife suggested that he go have a drink with their new neighbor. It reminded me a little bit of the dynamic in Cable Guy, which was directed by Ben Stiller. And I think a lot of people forget just how fucking funny Cable Guy was back in the 1990s, where Jim Carrey basically fell in love with Matthew Broderick and wanted to be around him all the time. He's like, I just want to hang out. No big deal. In that dream sequence.
I just want to hang out. No big deal.
But Cable Guy will make you shit your fucking pants. Like the basketball scene or the karaoke scene. Like there are some side-splittingly funny scenes in that. And admittedly, Cable Guy's probably going for a slightly more broad approach to comedy, but it was kind of a bomb at that time. Jim Carrey in the 90s was obviously like the highest paid guy in comedy, but after having a couple hits in a row like Ace Ventura and The Mask and things like that, Cable Guy kind of underperformed, but I thought it was the funniest movie that he made that decade. But now that I think about it, the funniest movie Jim Carrey made in the 90s was probably Dumb and Dumber. I've seen Dumb and Dumber more times than I care to admit, but if you're hanging out with my family, whether it's my parents or my siblings or my nieces and nephews, they've all seen Dumb and Dumber. It gives you an immediate shorthand with which to communicate with people. But getting back to Cable Guy, similar dynamic to Friendship, but Friendship's a little bit more awkward. And I'm not going to use the word cringe because I think cringe is one of the most overused words of the modern age, along with empathy, along with safety. But there's certain words that just become popular for whatever reason, and everybody just starts overusing them to the point where they lose all their power and they lose all their relevance. But Friendship enjoys that kind of awkward comedy where you're constantly, you just want to like throttle the character, like just please be normal, like stop being so fucking weird. You are scaring people, you're making them feel strange, you're driving them away with every attempt at becoming friends. So it is watchable, it is enjoyable, and once again, I was kind of lightly chuckling throughout the first 2/3. The last third of the movie where it really needed to kind of stick the landing and bring it all together, it really starts to become much more flimsy. And once again, the structure and the momentum, it all just kind of fades away until the movie just kind of dies. I won't even say a slow, painful death. It just kind of, once again, it just kind of fades into nothingness. And it's such a shame because A24 didn't make this movie, they acquired it, but I have a feeling A24, they're broad-minded enough where the filmmakers probably could have gotten away with fucking murder. Who knows if Andrew DeYoung was kind of self-censoring, hoping that the movie would sell at TIFF, but mission accomplished. He wrote and directed a movie, and it sold to A24. That is the dream for any independent filmmaker. I just wish that he'd really gone for the jugular a little bit more, like a director like Todd Solins. Because in the late 90s, Todd Solins gave us two of the all-time great dark comedies with Welcome to the Dollhouse and Happiness. And obviously, not every comedy is capable of going there. Not every filmmaker is capable of going to where Todd Solins did. And also, it must be said that Todd Solins' career was meteoric in terms of he got real big, real popular, real fast, and then it all kind of faded away. And he's been struggling to recapture those heights ever since. But I feel like there is an audience that does like weird, strange, dark comedies. I feel like Nathan Fielder seems to be cultivating a pretty interesting audience that likes a unique brand of humor that is very specific to Nathan Fielder, like with the show like The Curse. And I feel like Tim Robinson's probably well on his way to cultivating a similar fan base that just likes Tim Robinson's brand. And that totally works for me.
There's a new Marvel out that's supposed to be nuts. We should go see that.
Like back in the 1990s and early 2000s, what was kind of fun about the comedy genre is that every great comedic actor was like a little miniature empire unto themselves, whether that was Adam Sandler or Will Ferrell or David Spade or Jim Carrey or Eddie Murphy or any comedic actor that you care to mention. They would have these franchises that in like a style and a tone of comedy that was unique to their persona. And I'm all for comedians developing a flavor that is unique to them over the course of their career. And Tim Robinson, I don't think Tim Robinson's going to lose any fans here, but I just had such high hopes for it where I was like, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to have to like, I'm going to have to wear adult diapers to watch Friendship. I'm going to be laughing so hard because I think when people are at film festivals, you see so many kind of drab, mundane, lifeless movies that when you actually see a comedy, and I've been guilty of this a million times, where you overpraise something because it's so refreshing, or such a refreshing change of pace from the crap that you have been watching. And if you review a lot of movies, whether you're an official critic or just a YouTuber or whatever, it's easy to fall into that trap where you watch so many kind of crummy movies that when something that's pretty good comes along, you overpraise it, and then people kind of like, all right, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it was fine, but it wasn't as great as you're saying. I refuse to overpraise Friendship because maybe I take the comedy genre just a little bit too seriously. It's kind of a silly thing to say because we're talking about the comedy genre. The genre is supposed to make you laugh, so maybe I shouldn't take it so seriously. But at least within my friends in high school and college, if you recommended a comedy, you were putting your reputation on the line, and it really needed to deliver. And we were just like, I can't emphasize this enough. There was a time where there was so much comedy being made and so many different kinds of comedy being made, you could afford to be a bit more of like a connoisseur, kind of pick and choose which kind of comedy you were into. Like if you just wanted to watch Christopher Guest fake documentaries, you could go down that road. If you just wanted to watch Mike Myers playing the role of Austin Powers, he was making a movie like every goddamn summer. You could watch as many Austin Powers movies as you liked. Or if you love the style of comedy by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, not only were they writing and directing and animating South Park, but they were appearing in a ton of live action movies as well. They were everywhere. And then by the early 2000s, we had a whole new wave of different directors like Todd Phillips and Judd Apatow and all these different directors who were just cranking out one big giant comedic hit after another. And then it all just came to a crashing in. And once again, I don't think the desire to laugh has gone away. I just think the venues have changed. You could still go to a big old theater in New York and watch Dave Chappelle just murder the entire crowd then and there. And it's just an incredible experience, especially if you miss seeing comedy in movies. But I miss comedy so much. I'm probably going to see each and every single comedy that comes out because I can no longer afford to be so choosy in which comedies I go to see because we just get so precious few. And I would love to see the comedy genre get just as healthy and energetic and full of life as the horror genre is right now. But goddamn, it's just been so anemic. But if I were to try to zero in on what makes Friendship ultimately kind of unsatisfying for me, even though it did pass Mark Kermode's famous 6 laugh test, and if you don't know what the 6 laugh test is, if a movie makes you laugh out loud involuntarily 6 times or more, it is a successful comedy. And Friendship did pass the 6 laugh test, even if some of those laughs were more chuckles than as opposed to outright laughter. But I think anytime Friendship is attempting anything, whether it's the strange, awkward, one-sided bromance or the strange tensions between Tim Robinson and the character played by Kate Mara, who's his wife in the story. But anytime it's trying to explore certain relationships or certain scenarios, it never quite goes all the way there. And I feel like if you're going to make a broad comedy, then make it fucking broad. Like broad so that anybody and everybody can laugh uproariously. Or if it's going to be edgy and dark and disturbing, like once again, lean into it. Go all the way there. So the people like the sick fucks out there who really like dark comedies are going to be doing cartwheels as they watch it. It tries to do a lot of things, but doesn't necessarily like hit a home run with any one specific detail. It just seems a little bit cautious and inert, and anytime it really gets some momentum going, once again, it kind of gets distracted or goes another direction. But if I wanted to praise this movie for what it does best, I think it does a really good job of capturing just how strange and awkward the interactions can be between middle-aged men when they're trying to hang out like they're still in high school or college, but they're not. They have jobs, they have wives, they have kids, they've got responsibilities and burdens and that sort of thing, but they're still trying to be cool and talking about how they're into punk music or they're into, going on crazy adventures and breaking into like through the sewers at night and just having these kind of knucklehead adventures that you're supposed to get out of your system when you're like 18, 19, 20 years old. But as guys get into their middle-aged years and whether they're going to buy a fancy car or get a girlfriend half their age or whatever stupid behavior they want to indulge in so they can still feel like they're hanging on to some of their youth, there is something kind of eerily accurate about some of the interactions between Tim Robinson when he's trying his best and failing utterly to win over the friends of the character played by Paul Rudd, where you can just tell they're not on the same wavelength. They don't like his references. They don't like his jokes. They think he's weird. They think he's off-putting. And that stuff is something that a lot of people can relate to. Or maybe I can just relate to it because I can be awkward and weird in my own right. But it's not enough. Those scenes are few and far between, and we've seen those kinds of characters quite a few times in comedies. Like even a character like the one played by Jesse Plemons in the comedy Game Night, which came out like 6-7 years ago. I enjoyed Game Night. I didn't like lose my shit watching it, but it was an overall an enjoyable comedy. But Jesse Plemons really steals the show as the just kind of weird, awkward neighbor who really wants to be a part of their game night, but he just cannot get a fucking invite.
I do hope you keep me in mind for any future game nights.
Well, you bet.
I've always enjoyed the camaraderie of good friends, competing in games of chance and skill.
And every time he asks, like, why are they collecting all those nachos and potato chips? Like, what are they up to? You can just tell, like, He's not getting an invite to that particular evening. So this is all a long-winded way of saying that this is obviously fertile terrain when it comes to creating comedy. And Paul Rudd, he obviously knows what he's doing when it comes to comedy. He's probably been in more funny movies in the last 25 years than just about any actor. And of course, I'm going to immediately think of movies like Anchorman, where Anchorman had a lot of really funny people in it, but Paul Rudd consistently made me laugh and laugh hard. But he's also been in a lot of terrible comedies or semi-sort of comedies, movies that are pretending to be comedies, whether those like movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania or Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire and crap like that, where he gives every part his all. I mean, but Paul Rudd is not afraid of a little hard work, and he's not afraid to pretend as if an unfunny movie is more entertaining than it actually is. But he obviously knows what a real comedy is.
Andy, help me! I can't swim!
Cut it out, Bobby. You're fine.
For Christ's sake, Andy, help me! I'm drowning!
Because he's been in some legit comedy cult classics, movies like Wet Hot American Summer, which came out 24 fucking years ago. But goddamn, Paul Rudd, you can make a case for Paul Rudd and Elizabeth Banks, their relationship in that movie as being the funniest part of that movie. So yeah, Paul Rudd has got comedy in his bones and his DNA. And he's good in this, but I feel like, yeah, just the screenplay, it's just missing a little bit of edge, a little bit of teeth that would take it truly over into dark terrain. Or who knows, maybe I just read too many reviews ahead of time, and I just allowed myself to be suckered by all these critics saying it's the most hardcore, fucked up, perverse, diabolical comedy of the decade. But anytime someone's saying that any movie is the funniest movie of the last decade, I'm like, yeah, but that's probably the weakest decade of comedy since like the 1920s. So what the hell are we talking about? Like, you know, if you want to talk about comedies, you basically have to go to like 2008 and earlier, where we were just flooded with comedies on a regular basis, and sadly it's just been a dead genre for the longest time. But I will keep coming out hoping and praying that the comedy genre can make a comeback in movies, just because I miss them, and I feel like there is room in the overall kind of slate or the overall marketplace for some comedies to make a huge impact. All we need is a good one to come along. In any event, just as a way of wrapping this up, I'm thrilled and delighted that A24 decided to get behind this movie. If you like the trailer, you're going to like some of the movie. I can't claim you'll like all the movie, and maybe they use some of the best comedic bits in the trailer, but it's worth seeing if the trailer grabs you. But if you're at all hesitant whatsoever, well, then you're probably not going to get on this movie's wavelength. But who knows? I would like to believe that there's, you know, a small group of young hipsters out there that might be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. This is the funniest fucking movie ever made. And maybe those kids have never seen a good comedy in their lives. But if they embrace it and get excited for it, that means more people will make more comedies. And I feel like when it comes to comedy, it's a bit of a large numbers game where you need a lot of comedies to get made for the gems to kind of sneak through. And everybody's kind of a different definition of what is a gem. Like for a lot of people, they love that National Lampoon style of comedy, like the Harold Ramis type of comedy, movies like Caddyshack and Vacation and that sort of thing. And some people like overly intellectual stories about romance and love, like, you know, Woody Allen movies from the 1970s and 1980s. And some people like the really satirical parodies by people like Mel Brooks, making movies like, The Producers or Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein. I feel like the comedy genre there's room for so many different kinds of comedy, but for whatever reason right now, over the last 5-10 years, just none. Like, I'll take terrible comedies over no comedies, because I feel like even if you make enough terrible comedies, eventually one of them's going to be ridiculous or strange or hilarious in some strange way, shape, or form. So I just feel like this genre is long overdue to make a major comeback. And that is my final point on this topic. But if you're part of a small niche group of young people that think this movie is one of the funniest fucking movies you've ever seen, awesome. Take your friends, take your family members, turn it into a phenomenon. That means more comedies will get made. But I think that's all I've got to say about this particular film. Hope you enjoyed my little petulant rant. If so, please consider liking, subscribing, hitting the notification bell. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.